Hey folks, welcome to this tutorial on how to set up your computer with a working development environment. The purpose of this is to just walk you through the steps and get you so you're able to develop C++ applications using the JUCE framework, or make JUCE audio plugins, plugins that you would use in your DAW. All right, so we've got a few steps to get through. Over here on the left, I've got my app task queue. If you take my Programming for Musicians, C++ for Musicians course, included in that is a 17-hour course which explains how to build this thing from scratch. So just, a little shameless plug right there about that. Okay, so we've got some steps that we need to get through in order to set up a working development environment. So the first thing we're going to do is install Xcode. Xcode is the text editor compiler thing that we're going to be using to compile our code. We are going to need to get the JUCE framework, and we're going to do that by cloning it via terminal. Then inside JUCE is an application called ProJucer, and we are going to compile that. That is going to allow us to create our projects. So we're going to then create a Hello World project, and we're going to build the Hello World project. And then once we have finished building the Hello World project, we are going to create a Git repository for it. And then we're going to make some changes, and we're going to go through the process of what it's like to do commits of our changed code to a repository. Now, the whole point behind a repository is that it lets you store the changes that you make to your code in a way that is undoable or reversible, that sort of thing. That's a very, very general overview. I'm leaving out a lot of information with regard to what a Git repository actually is, or source control management. But that's all you really need to know about what it currently does. So once we set up the Git repository, we're going to make a local one, and then we're going to make a remote repository that we can push to, so that way the changes that we make to our code are stored both on our computer and on this cloud server thing in some other computer far away. That way our code is changed in two places. And if we want to share it with other people, it's a very easy way to share our code with other people. So that's these last steps where we're going to make some commits. We're going to push those commits to the cloud, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to do those first things via terminal, because it's very important to learn how to do that via the command line. On Windows, that would be done via the DOS prompt or some other version of the command line there. And then we are going to install a Git GUI so we don't have to use command line afterwards. But it's really important to know how to do it via command line. Okay, so with that said, let's get started installing Xcode. Now, before we begin doing that, I just want you to know that I am running this version of OS X inside a virtual machine running in Parallels. Now, this version of OS X is 10.13.6. It's not the most recent. This is the highest version that my computer can run, which is a mid-2011 27-inch iMac. Okay, so with that said, basically you're going to go to the App Store. You're going to search for Xcode. Search for Xcode. And you're going to click the Get button. Now, depending on what version of computer you have, you might not be able to. For instance, mine requires this version of Xcode requires 10.14.4, and my computer's too old for that. So I have to do something else. I have to go into my Apple developer account. You can make these for free. Just go to developer.apple.com and you can create an account. Then you can log in. And again, these accounts are free. You do not need to pay any money unless you actually want to put your app on the App Store. Okay, so once you have this, once you're logged into your developer account, you can go to Downloads. Then you can go to More right here. And now you can search for Xcode. And you can find the version that you need that will be compatible with your operating system. Now, the way to find out which version is compatible is to search for Xcode release notes. And then go view the release notes, and you can look and see which version is compatible. So for example, over here we have, let's see, there's Xcode 10, right? So we got 10, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, that sort of thing. So let's see what version 10.3 requires. Maybe we can use it. And it requires OS X 10.14.3. So I cannot install that on my machine. So I'm not going to download that one. Let's see if there's 10.2. Maybe I can do 10.2. Let's see. 10.2.1. Nope, that needs 10.14. Let's see, 10.2. Nope, that also needs 10.14. OS X 10, Xcode 10.1, that needs OS X 10.13.6. All right, so that'll work. So I'm going to go download Xcode 10.1. So I'll just find it here and I'll click this download button, and it's going to take a while for it to download. Now I've already done that. That's what this guy is right here on the desktop. So once it's downloaded, just double click on it to install it. And then I'm going to do that right now, and I will be right back once it is done. All right, there we go. If we clean this up, we can see there's our Xcode. Okay, so we are done here. We can close this. All right, let's put Xcode where it needs to go. Clearly needs to go in applications. All right, now let's run it for the first time. And it's going to ask to do some stuff. We need to set up a couple things. Yes, agree. Make your changes. It's going to install the components and whatnot. This might take a couple minutes. All right, Xcode is now launching. This is successfully installed. Okay, great. So we can just close this for right now. Now that we've got Xcode installed, we can go over here and we can check off that we've completed it. All right, our next task is to clone the JUCE repository. So JUCE can be found here. If we just search for JUCE, we're going to see it here in a couple places. And what we want to do is clone it from GitHub. We don't want to go here and download it that way. We want to do it the right way and clone the repository so we have access to it on our computer. So let me shrink this a little bit and let me open up Terminal. Now, as I said earlier, Terminal is the command line application. It's basically the way to interact with the back end of the computer, with all the low end stuff. So we are going to clone this repository. Oop, sorry about that. We're going to clone this repository to our local computer. So I'm going to put this right into a desktop folder because it's just nice and convenient. I'm just going to call it programming. Programming. Give it a capital P. All right. Now that I've got this, I'm going to do CD. Let me turn this font size way up so you can see what I'm typing. Let's see. Command plus. All right, so I've got Terminal up here, and I've got a folder on my desktop called Programming, and I'm going to clone into this folder. This is the way that I'm going to download the JUCE repository. So first thing I'm going to do is type CD, meaning change directory, and I'm just going to drag this folder in, and it's going to auto-populate the path. Then I'm going to press enter, and now I'm going to be inside that folder. So now what I need to do is type git clone, and then I want this URL right here. So just copy that, paste it, and push enter. And now it's going to clone the repository. And if we look inside this folder, we will see that happening. Right there. It's going to take it a minute. Right now, we see all of the files that are in the JUCE repository, but we don't actually see the Git repo. And to do that, we have to show hidden files, and we can do that by pressing Command-Shift-. And now we can see here's the actual Git repository. Here's the GitHub thing. Here's the actual Git ignore file. This is going to be very important because we're going to want that. All right. So our next step, now that we have cloned the Git repository, we need to switch to the development branch, and we can do that by doing git checkout develop. Git branch develop. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to actually switch into the JUCE repository first. So if we go ls like this, we'll see there's the JUCE folder, so we need to go cd./JUCE. Now we're inside the JUCE repository, and if we do ls, we can see here's all of the files that are here, excluding the ones that are hidden. So we need to do git checkout develop. All right, cool. So now we're on the development branch. And now we can go to extras, ProJucer, builds, Mac OS X, and we're going to open this ProJucer file in Xcode. And we're done cloning JUCE, so we can check that off. And let's add a little subtask that says we switched to develop And we did that. Okay, cool. All right, let's open this. And we're going to build the ProJucer. Now the ProJucer is going to be used to create all of the projects that we're going to make in C++ and stuff. The first change we need to make is go here under app config, and we're going to be building this in GPL mode. GPL mode means we're going to not be bound by the normal JUCE license. We don't have to pay them a license fee to use any of the JUCE stuff, but we have to release our projects in completely open source formats. So we just go here to appcode.h. Here's where all the files are. Just go to appcode.h, change this, define juicer enable GPL mode from 0 to 1. And then just hit the build button. You can press Command B or hit this play button right here, or go to the product menu and build right there. It's going to take it a few moments. You can see all the stuff it's doing by clicking this button far on the right and choosing this guy to actually see the source files get compiled. Now a little, while we're waiting for this, this is where all the source code for our stuff, for any project is going to live. It's going to live inside some folder here. JUCE uses modules and whatnot. We'll get to that. But basically this is where all of your source code and all this stuff is going to be living. So this is what we're going to end up dealing with. All right, so we're just waiting for this to compile right now. All right, it's got a lot of files. Let's change this to all messages. Now we can see what it has done and what it is still working on. And you can see each file takes just a couple seconds, just a few seconds for it to compile, but altogether it adds up. It can take a decent amount of time. All right, cool. Build succeeded. So we are done with this. We can close this out now. And our finished build is right here in the builds folder, debug ProJucer. This is the ProJucer app. So we can check off that we built ProJucer and we can run this now. All right, so we need to set up our JUCE path. And the way to do this, let's see, let's help JUCE improve its software. No, we don't want to deal with that. Well, first we'll set that path in just a minute. Let's get rid of this. We don't care about that for right now. Okay, so we're going to go to ProJucer. We're going to go to global paths. And now we need to configure where the path to JUCE is and where the JUCE modules are. The path to JUCE is going to be the JUCE folder itself, which for me is on the desktop in this programming folder, this folder right here. So just click open on that. Now the JUCE modules folder is the modules folder inside of that JUCE folder, like that. Okay, once we've done that, we should be good to go. So just click, we're going to create our Hello World project, which is going to be a GUI application like this. And we're going to place it in the desktop programming. It's going to go here. It's going to go next to the JUCE folder, and we're just going to call it Hello World, one word, like that. Make sure it's a single word. And click Create. And if we go back over here, here is our Hello World project. So let's build this right now, and we'll take a look at what we get. All right, so just click Save and Open in IDE. It's going to open it in Xcode. As I said earlier, here's where all of our source code is for this. This is our main component. This is main.component.cpp. Here's the main file itself. If we switch to ProJucer real quick, we can see that this set of source files right here is identical to what we have here. So that's one way to understand what you're seeing in ProJucer is identical to what you see in Xcode. All right, let's press the play button to run it. And we're going to build and then run it. And we'll be able to look at our Hello World application. It's going to go through the same thing. It's going to compile it all again. And it takes a couple minutes for it to, moments for it to build everything. And then when it opens up, we're going to get to see what our Hello World application actually looks like. All right, there we go. Build succeeded. Running Hello World. We just have to wait for it. Let's give it a second to spawn. All right, there's our Hello World application. Awesome. Okay, so we can close this for right now, and we can close this for right now. And now we can check off this guy right here. All right, we are going to, now that we have a Hello World project, we are going to create a Git repository for it. So we're going to go cd and just drag this Hello World project in. Like that. And now we can check and make sure that it's there, ls like that, and we can see that we are inside that folder. Okay, we need to create a Git repository. We need to add some files to it, and then we need to commit these files. So the first thing we're going to do is do git init like this. And I'm going to, I'm currently showing the hidden files, so that's good. Now, if I do git status, it's going to show us a bunch of files. So git status, it's going to show that there's like nothing tracked, whatnot. It's currently tracking this builds folder. It's currently tracking this JUCE library code folder. It's currently tracking our source code and all this stuff. I'm sorry, these are untracked, but they are potentially ready to be committed. So what we need to do, we need to add a git ignore file because we don't want to keep track of all of this stuff, right? We don't want to keep track of this stuff because every time we resave the file in ProJucer, it overwrites those things. And every time we rebuild it in Xcode, it regenerates this thing. And it regenerates this and this and this. So we don't want those to be stored in the repository. So we need to make a git ignore file for that. And we do that by typing touch.gitignore like that. That's going to create our git ignore file, and we can edit this with a text editor like this. So we go open with text edit, and we're going to type */ the slash that points up to the right, and we're going to ignore the builds folder and do the same thing again, */ and then the JUCE library code folder like that. Save it. And now if we, now we can start adding our files to the repository. So we can do git add period, and that's going to add everything. And now if we do git status, we can see it's just our git ignore file. It's the hello world project. It's and our source files. Now let me just get rid of this git directory and this git ignore file and show you what I mean if we didn't add that git ignore file. Check this out. So if I'm going to get rid of the git repository, I'm getting rid of the git ignore file. I'm going to do git init like this. Now we have our git repository, and I'm going to do git add period, and look at all this stuff that gets added. Git status. Look at all these files that have been added to the repository. We don't want any of that stuff included. So that's why we create our git init. So let's get rid of this one more time. All right, and now we can do, let's create our ignore file. First, we'll do touch.gitignore. Let's edit it with a text editor. Open with text edit, */ builds, */ JUCE library code. Save it. We can close it now. And now we can do git init, git add period, git status. And now we only have a couple files. Oh, we should ignore this ds store. We don't need that. So let's modify this again and do */ /.ds store like that. And let's save that. And let's do this again. Git status. Modified git ignore. Git add period. Git status. Okay, so it's still showing it. So we need to remove this file to unstaged. So we can do git rm dash and then that file. Git rm dash cached, and we can get rid of .ds store like that. Now if we do git status, there's no more ds store file. Okay, so that's good. So now we have these changes staged. Any changes we make from this point further, after committing these files, we're going to be able to undo those changes. So let's do git commit to actually add them to the repository. So git commit -m for message, and then we'll do initial commit like that. All right, these guys were now added to the repository. We can undo this. So let's take a look. Let's make a change in Xcode, and we'll be able to see what this all looks like. So we're going to open this guy up. We can go here. Let's change the text color right here from white to red. I opened up main component.cpp. We're going to change this code from white to red like that. So let's just run it, make sure that's what it actually did. All right, cool. So the text is now red. Now we can see right here this little blue line. This indicates that the source code was changed from the original. We can look at the change if we view this one right here, and we can see the difference. We can see that it was white previously and it was red before. So this is an example of being able to undo the changes, like we can discard the change, that sort of thing. So if we go up here and look at our commit history, the second tab from the left, we can see here's our initial commit, and then we can do a commit of changing the color to red. So let's do this change. Let's do this commit in Xcode's source control system. So we're going to do a commit right here. Click that commit button. We are going to ignore the change we made in ProJucer right here. We're not going to commit that. We're just going to commit this change right here. So we're going to make this say changed text to red, like that, and commit. Okay. All right. So there's our commit, and we can view the change if we click on this guy right here. We can see what was changed. Here's where all of these things were added. Here's where we actually, Here's where we actually made the change from white to red. If we shrink this a little bit, we can actually see where the change happens, and we can revert. We can check out this branch right here, and that'll take us back. So this is a good time to introduce the concept of remote repositories, where you can see all the sorts of changes that have been happening to a repository. So let's close Xcode, and we can check this off. We created a Git repository for our Hello World project. We created a local one, and we made some commits. We've done those two things. What we haven't done is created a remote repository so that way our source code is backed up to the cloud. So let's do that now. So we're going to go to Safari, and if you have a GitHub account already, you can sign in. If you do not, you need to sign up. You can also do this on Bitbucket if that's your preferred source control system of choice. All right, so I'm going to sign in here. All right, once you are signed in, this is an example of all the commits that I was talking about. You can see here's where they make a bunch of changes to the JUCE repository all the time. So as an example, we can just look through these. Just click on the commits over here, and we can see all the changes that they've been making to the code base. Like this is the old one. This is code that they've added. That sort of thing. Here's code that they changed. They got rid of this. They just changed this from elements to element. That sort of thing. And all of this, you're able to undo it and go back to any state in time, any point in time where you made changes to your code base. So it's an incredible feature if you're working on something and you make a few commits, you send it to your test users, and they're like, hey, this doesn't work anymore. What happened? You can easily roll back to a previous version and send them a working build. Okay. Let's create a repository for our Hello World. We're going to go up here. We're going to click on this plus button right here. We're going to click New Repository. And we're going to give it the same name that we had of the project we made. So just Hello World. Hello World. Like that. It's got to be public to conform with that GPL mode of ProJucer and whatnot. We don't need a git ignore file because we already made one. And we don't need a license because it's just a Hello World project. It doesn't matter. All right, so create repository. All right, and here is our repository. There's no code in it, so we need to add code. And we do that by pushing an existing repository from the command line. We have an existing repository here, so we need to follow these steps and add a remote to our local repository. So we can just copy this line, copy it, paste it, push enter, and then we can do this, git push -u origin master. Just copy it, paste it, push enter. It's going to push it to the cloud. Username over here. Okay, so here is where you need to type in your username and password if you haven't set that stuff up. Again, for me, this is a brand new operating system. This is a blank operating system install, so I have not set up any of those credentials, so I'm going to do that now. All right, once you have authenticated, you can upload and push your repository to the cloud. Now, if you refresh this page, you'll see your changes and you'll see your 2 commits, and you can look at them right in here. All right, let's make another change. Let's turn this back. Let's make this code be white again. Let's so we created our remote repository, so that's good, and we pushed our commits to the cloud. Let's go back to our project. Let's reopen this, and we're going to change that text from red to another color and push it from within Xcode. All right, so go here, go back to main component.cpp. All right, and now we can change this. Let's change it to green. And let's make the font size 32. Make it nice and big. Okay, and let's run it and make sure. All right, cool. Green font, it's twice the size that it was before. Okay, great. So we can go here and commit. Remember, we're not going to commit the changes we made to ProJucer. We're just going to do this one right here. And we're going to say doubled font size made text green. And we can click push to remotes. And this is going to ask us, we're not going to do JUCE, we're just going to do the hello world. We're going to commit and push. And this is, when it says origin master, that's going to be based on what we set here in this line right here, get remote add. And this is the name of the remote that we added. Okay, so origin master. All right, so just commit and push. And we need to provide credentials the same way we did in terminal. So it's very easy, just type your username and your password. All right, and it's pushing it right now. And off it goes. And we can go back to Safari. We can go back to the project, and we can see that there have been 3 commits. Awesome. All right, the next step for us is to install Fork, which is a Git GUI. It's going to give us more features than what we have in Xcode, and it's going to give us an easier way of accessing the Git features than we would have in terminal. So we need to go here and just search for fork git GUI, like that, and we should see Fork, a fast and friendly Git client for Mac and Windows. And let's download this. And we want to download it for Mac, since we are on Mac. Allow. All right, it's a pretty quick download. All right, let's grab it. Fork.dmg. We're going to install it real quick. It's super easy to use. That's my favorite part about it. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new branch. And we're going to make some changes. And then we are going to, we're going to commit those changes. And then we're going to merge them. So this is going to give a good example of what it's like to actually do some development and work on features. Okay, so we've got Fork installed here. Let's run Fork. Now we need to do a little bit of configuration in the very beginning, once it's up and running. All right, so the first thing we want to do is go to Preferences. We want to change the default folder. For me, it's going to be this programming folder that's right on the desktop. So desktop programming, like that. All right, rescan repositories. Okay, now we can do File, New Window. Yes, rescan repositories. Okay, now we can see these are the 2 repositories that we have in our on our computer currently. All right, so let's open Hello World, and now we can see all of this stuff right here. So let's make a branch from this doubled font size, and we're gonna change this and do a little bit of work, make it look kind of nice. Maybe we'll add just a horizontal line or something like that. And then we'll commit it and we're gonna merge it back in. So we'll do create new branch, and this is going to be graphics update, like that. Create and checkout. All right, now let's make some changes here. Let's see, let's just change this from centered to be like centered left or something. Let's see what our choices are. I'm just gonna press Escape. Oops. Just gonna press Escape and see what our choices are. Centered left, we'll go like that. And yeah, that's good enough. Okay, so that's the feature. We made our graphics change. We did some testing and it was cool. All right, yeah, we liked the way this looked. That was the change that we made. Okay, very cool. All right, so we can go back to Fork. We have our change right here. We need to stage our change. And we can look at it over here if we expand this. All right, centered left. Okay, cool. So now we can say changed text position, like that, and we can commit it. And here's our change right there. Now what we want to do, let's push this to the cloud so we can do graphics update, push to the origin, like that. Push. And it's off to the cloud. So if we check here, sorry, not this page. Let's go back to our Hello World project. We can see here, if we refresh this, 2 branches. We can see the 2 branches. We've got our graphics update and our master branch. All right, and we can see that it's 1 commit ahead of master. So now we can merge it back in. We can go graphics update, the orange one, create pull request. All right, we want to merge this back in. Oh, we have to set up our login. And we can just log in this way. Yes, authorize. All right, that's logged in now. Now we can set our pull request, fixed graphics, fixed text position. This is what happens in a real development environment where you actually create pull requests and do merges. All right, so we can take a look at this here. And we can see this is the request that was pulled in. There's no conflicts. We can inspect what the code change actually was and see if we actually like it or if it's like, hey, no, don't do it. This is a bad change. It's going to break something else. All right, so we can go back here. This conversation it says there's no conflicts, so we can merge it. And then we can also confirm the merge and then close the pull request. Or it already closes automatically. All right, and now we can safely delete this branch. So now if we go back to fork, we need to fetch. That's this button right here. Fetch all remotes, prune remote branches. Like that. And look at this. Here's our change that we made, and here's where it was merged in to the framework like that. And this is where our local branch is currently. So we need to switch to the master branch, and now we need to update. We need to fast forward master branch so it's in the same state as this. Because right now, if we look at our master branch, our code is centered and our color is still green. So once we fast forward, right click, fast forward. Now it's centered left. All right. And if we ever want to go back to some other version, like say we want to go back to where it's red, we can just right click on this and then reset master to here. All right, and we'll just discard all local changes. Okay. If we look here, we can see that our text is red and our text is centered. All right, so we're able to check this out and we can see what's going on. And if we want to change it some more, we could make some more changes and commit them and do that sort of thing. Very, very useful. So this is what happens in a real development environment. Somebody says, hey, can you add this button that does this one thing? You say, sure, make a branch for it. And then you do your changes on that branch. And then you submit the branch for review. Somebody higher up on the food chain is going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, this is cool. It's not going to destroy the app. Let's merge it in. And then it becomes part of your actual thing. And then then they say, hey, everybody, you can fast forward your repo to this branch or something like that. All right, so let's go back to origin master. Okay, cool. And our text is green again, and it's centered left. All right, so we installed fork. We used fork. That's awesome. Fork makes it super easy to do all this kind of stuff. If we look at the JUCE branch, sorry, not JUCE branch. If we look at the JUCE repository, and we look at all the commits, we can see there are a whole bunch of commits. There's like over 10,000 here. And you can see there's 2 different branches going on. That's what this second line is right there. There's 2 lines right there. And you can see here where this branch 5.4.4, this version of JUCE was merged in right here. Here's where a bunch of development work was performed on the develop branch. That's what the branch in orange is. And you can see here's where the origin, the master branch of JUCE is currently at state-wise. It hasn't been updated since October 23rd. And you can see there's been a bunch of fixes that have occurred on the development branch. Okay? So if, for some reason you were like, hey, this commit is breaking my code, you could just say, all right, let me roll back to the previous one. That sort of thing. Like for this one, This fix in push notifications for Android, that's an example of maybe it's not working on your device. So you could say, all right, you know what, let me just go back to this version of JUCE right here and just check this one out. And now like the JUCE framework is, the code in the JUCE framework is based on the way it is as of this commit here. And it's, very easy to jump back up to the forward one. So don't change that. We can just discard that, or we can stash it. Oh, sorry, not that. We can check this out. We can just discard our change because our only change was changing this right here. All right, so we can just double click on this. We can discard that change because it's very easy to replicate again. And now we're caught up with the most recent version of the JUCE framework. All right, so that wraps up how to get yourself set up with a development environment. We installed Xcode, which we can use to edit all of our code and develop our projects. We cloned the JUCE repository and built ProJucer. And we created a Hello World project. That's this thing right here. We created a repository for it locally. That's what this stuff was right here. We created a git ignore file, so that way it doesn't commit all of the stuff in this builds folder, all of the stuff in this JUCE library code folder. We committed that. We made some commits and pushed those to the cloud. That's what this was over here. All of these branches right here. We pushed those commits to the cloud. We created a branch. We did some work on the branch, and we merged and approved that change in that branch. And we did most of that. If I close this window, we did most of that here in Fork, where we created a branch. We did work. We created the pull request. We approved the pull request on the GitHub website and whatnot. So that's an inside look into what happens in the real developmental world context of software development. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're able to use this to get yourself set up with a working development environment so you can start making C++ applications. All right, I will see you in the next video. Deuces.